Good morning, everyone. This is Ron. Saturday morning. I hope and trust you've had a good week. I know it's been a very hot week, but hope all is well with you. When we last met on Monday, we talked about a couple of things, of course, with the questions. We started off with Pastor. We had ended Sunday, I think, talking. Pastor made a comment about education and the effects of that with the church, and he kind of brought some clarity to that first thing Monday. So if anyone heard that or didn't hear it, if you have questions for, I'll give you room for questions in a minute. The other thing we talked about, we talked about a statement that George had made. George Watson talked about being a witness and only being able to, if you're present, being a witness to, he specifically talked about Jesus not being there, not being able to be a witness to that. And so we talked about that and what it means to be a witness, and we tied that in with vulnerability and what that means. And we were looking at it from the perspective of Matthew chapter 18, verses 1 through 6. So we opened those up a little bit and talked about what that means and what it means to be humble, what it means to be a part of the kingdom and that sort of thing. So what it means to be a witness, that is an internal thing and it's not an external. We even talked about it from the perspective of not just from a spiritual perspective, but not from the Bible perspective, rather, but it's all spiritual, looking at it from our upbringing, being with a parent or a grandparent, if something said to you, and that those words even resonate with you to this day. So the witness has nothing to do with physically standing next to a person, but what you heard, what you felt inside, that is your witness. And so we kind of opened that up a little bit. So that's where we were Monday. But throughout the week, if you have any questions and or comments on anything that you may have observed or just anything you want to enlighten us with. Okay. Nothing? Okay.
Ron, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I was trying to wait to give somebody else a chance to ask the question. What does 5G have with us, or does it have anything pertaining to the fifth dimension?
What you say, 5G?
Yeah, the 5G that they have, all this 5G equipment and technical stuff that they're doing, does that have anything to do with us being in the fifth dimension?
Pass. Anyone?
Hey, this is Nick. I might be able to help with that. Can I ask where you heard that from?
It was just a thought I had.
Oh, okay. Let's deal with the dimension part of that first. The dimensions are infinite, metaphysically and spiritually speaking. And it's been said that we are moving into the fourth or fifth or whichever one, depending on who you're talking to or where you may hear that. But this is mostly a generalization. There isn't a number that we're moving into. Rather, it is a sort of collective vibration increase that gives us more access to those dimensions that are beyond, so to speak, the purely material or physical experience. as far as 5G is concerned, and just the various ways in which we are saturated in various technological wavelengths, vibrations, sort of mindsets. It is, in my belief and opinion, just another version of something we already have. The number 5 is not necessarily significant, I don't believe, just as the number 4 was not necessarily significant for 4G. You will probably hear, depending on how or where you go looking for this kind of information, that 5G or 4G somehow plays a part in something that in the conspiratorial sense, the Illuminati or whatever wants to do to humanity. I'm sure that's partly true. But the real detriment that these kinds of things can have on us is one of distraction and potentially confusion in terms of the way we think about them, and also with our own habits, in that we become attached to technology. 5G is just it's the same thing we've had. It's just faster. There's nothing 5G can do that 4G couldn't, that 3G couldn't, but it's just a new thing. And therefore, it gets people's conspiracy attention for a little while before we move on to the next thing. But as I said, the real danger with any of this stuff is, I believe, that of confusion and distraction when we attach ourselves to it. And the real sort of metaphysical or spiritual reality behind the numbering of these things is not necessarily significant on the material side. In terms of the reason they've given it that number, it's just the next number. Not that numbers themselves do not have a consciousness associated with them, but in terms of the impact it has on our overall experience, it is the same as any other technological advancement, I would say. Thank you.
Well, since you said that, I think about it's all about speed with our society. But I think about how things are happening quickly now. And it's like, yeah, since you said that, yeah. So to me, it's got to be something to that, because it's a physical, what we see in the physical is what we're experiencing internally, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it has to do with something the days are going quick. Things are just happening quickly. So that's another reason why I asked that question too.
Yeah, and I believe there's definitely a connection there in terms of the way our physical technology evolves being in some way a reflection of what is happening spiritually. But it still poses that ability to distract or confuse us. But yes, things are most certainly moving more quickly, and the speed at which information moves is sort of directly correlated with the speed at which people learn how they are being lied to. So that is, it creates a feedback loop in a way that could be either positive or negative. I believe it will be positive, but there's still a lot of potential, there is a lot of confusion and chaos that must be dealt with along the way. But anyway, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Sir. Yes, sir.
I want to say something for a moment, if I may. Of
course.
I want to speak to us about the confusion that we are being faced with. what's happening is that we are in a very, very precarious position right now. And there are two primary methods that's used, not the only, but primary methods that's used in order to inhibit change. One is to create as much confusion as you can. And I think Nick touched on that pretty much in regards to the 5G thing. What happens is these things are presented and they become a shiny object that attracts our attention and distracts us from what's paramount. The idea of those things having an adverse effect on what we do is an impossibility. The only way it can affect us adversely is that we embrace it or we give life to it. If we stay focused on the mission, and the mission is harmony, then those things that are designed to distract us, and there are many, will not have the effect that they are intended to have. There are more things to distract us than we can count, and 5G is just one of them, but there are so many others. And my desire is for us to stay focused on what we see as opposed to what we are being shown in an adversarial way or for the purpose of being distracted. The other thing is division. The most dangerous thing that we face at this juncture in our journey is the possibility of division. There are statements made, there are things being done to divide the nation. And this division in this country can affect us in a divisive way if we allow it to. The energy of division in this nation has been prevalent, but it never has been as strong as it is now, not even during the Civil War. It was not as strong as it is now. And it has the potential to spill over into the mission that we have been given. It has the propensity to spill over into our journey and become a roadblock. We have to be cognizant of that. Our focus has to be on unity and the mission at hand, which is bringing an understanding to humanity of what was written thousands of years ago, and not being afraid to tell the truth or to take the journey wherever it leads us. Right now, we have decisions to make. Are we going to remain as strong as we've always been? Or are we going to be weakened by the adversarial thoughts and adversarial deeds of others? We have to make a decision in order for us to stay focused. And that decision that we make is not one that we make today and be done with it. No, we have to constantly remind ourselves of the importance of what we do and the danger in falling away, not just to us, but to humanity at large. Right now, we are about to face a major shift in how things are done and who's doing them. I feel very strongly that we are going to experience a death soon of major entities, major players in this nation or in this country who have been authors of division. And we cannot allow the authors of division to hand us their book to read, and we follow their pathway. It's more important now than ever before that we understand who we are and what we are about. I learned yesterday that there are people who are following us on YouTube. We had no idea that were following us. And also during the night last night, I tossed and turned in my sleep because this message of divisiveness was on me, and I felt compelled to speak to it. And I do believe that it has a strong bearing on the position that the leader of division is in, and that position is one of frailty, one where he is near death. Mitch McConnell is the author of the confusion, the author of the division that we're experiencing, and this division or this divisiveness was instituted by him during the tenure of Obama in office, and that gorge has widened since then, and he has been the one who has instigated the depth of our division. Now, don't get me wrong. I do believe that it's orchestrated by our Creator, and the reason I say that is because the division has been beneath the surface forever. Divisions remain after enslavement ended, physical enslavement ended. Divisions got wider during the civil rights movement, and now with Obama being elected, it got even wider. Now they are like the Grand Canyon. They're very expansive, and the author of them must leave the scene before we begin to see manifested change. The author of this division must be taken away from the seat of power. Excuse me, and that will begin a visual manifestation of the harmony that we so desperately desire. Our focus must remain the same: harmony for humanity, without anything being a constant distraction to us, without anything being a divisive entity for us. So I say all of that because I feel very strongly that we are in the place where we have been seeking to be for quite some time. I say place, but the word probably should be space, where we have been seeking for quite some time. And now is the time for us to stay focused more than ever before. During the week, I was led to look at when Jesus said on the cross, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." That stuck with me, and I did not understand why it stuck with me during the course of this week until I began to see what's happening in terms of the distractions and the method of division. So the reason I see that I've been shown that, I do believe, is because this idea of forgiveness needs to be amplified so that we would know exactly what we are talking about when we talk about forgiveness, because people who are the authors of division and those soldiers who follow in the footsteps of the author of division must be forgiven, and that forgiveness must be genuine. But it's like knowing what Jesus said. How can you preach or teach what Jesus said if you only read the words on the page and you don't know really what he said? how can we truly forgive if we don't understand the depth of forgiveness and the power of forgiveness and what it actually means? And when we put it into macro by discussing it and understanding what Jesus was saying on that cross, it then becomes easier for by putting it in the macro, it becomes easier for people to forgive. And even if they cannot explain what forgiveness is, the energy of the true nature of forgiveness has been exposed to the environment of this earth consciousness, and it will do its job in terms of freeing us and freeing others from the deceptive ways that they have, and will also bring a deeper cohesion to us, so that we won't be deceived. Because the scripture clearly says that even the elect will be deceived, and we have to avoid those deceptions. And the only way we can do that is by being genuine with our teachings, which we are indeed, and genuine with each other. Thank you. One.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Questions or comments, anyone?
This is Evelyn again. Thank you, Pastor, for what you just said, because to me, that gives us something to hold on to, because there are a lot of distractions in the universe, and there is fear as well. And I appreciate the platform that we have, the teachers, and even the family that we have, because we get to share what's happening with us, the concerns we have, and that gives me something to hold on to, because I do see a lot of things, and it concerns me, but I really needed to hear what you said this morning, and I appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a question regarding death. When you were talking about death a few minutes ago, or is it more so of they're no longer in that position, or they're no longer going to be in this physical world?
That is not for me to determine. That's what the universe determines. However, it does not matter which, because I prefer not being in this world, because it's not really death, it's life. But no longer being in that position can be a suffering beyond compare. So what happens is in the hands, under the authority of the universe itself. The major thing is that that position is vacated, so which in itself will create a war between those powers who are seeking division. Does that make sense to you, or does that help you?
It does. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Ron. I read something this week that really kind of helped me see things. I was looking up something about the five senses and looking at them from a spiritual perspective. And the thing I read about hearing talks about a movement on the inside, the sound that vibrates, and the rhythm that it catches your soul on the inside, and it opens doors. So it becomes something more than the words you heard. It expands in you and becomes a part of what you desire. So, looking at that and trying to understand, gaining a better understanding. Go back to forgiveness. You talked about the power and the energy of it. in the details that you mentioned, Pastor, and you mentioned the importance of forgiveness. Go back to that portion a little bit for me, please, and talk about the power of forgiveness.
Okay. First of all, forgiveness. Forgiveness speaks to the idea of to return something or to return someone to its original relationship with the universe. What does that mean? The power that forgiveness has is for us to be able to return someone back to their original relationship with the universe. That when we forgive someone, that door is open. They have the opportunity at that moment or in the future to return to their relationship with the universe. Everyone, without regard to anything that they believe or think, everyone has a relationship with the universe. When I say universe, I'm talking about Creator, Ensof, however you want to term it. Everyone has that relationship. And when we forgive, we open the door for them to return to that relationship. If we look at that from what Jesus said when he says that if you don't forgive others, your Father in heaven will not forgive you. If you don't open the door for others to return to this relationship with the universe or with this relationship with its Creator, then we will not have the opportunity to return to our relationship with the Creator. So when we open the door for someone else to have an opportunity to return to that relationship, we also have that same opportunity. And forgiveness actually returns us to that relationship that we had with the other person. Now, forgiveness does not mean that you forget. It does not mean that at all. Forgiveness means that you have let go of your you being in your feelings about something. You will remember it, but it doesn't bother you. You don't hold that against them. You don't have ill feelings toward them, or you don't have these type of feelings that you would have when you lay eyes on them or when someone mentions them. It is no different than your feelings are no different than what they were even before the infraction occurred. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, and I have to admit, I heard that differently this time than I think we've discussed that before. Before, what I heard when we discussed forgiveness is you forgive the person or you restore the relationship back to the place before the infraction happens. So whether it be someone did something to you, whether it's someone close to you, you restore it to where but what you're saying now is that restoration is to restore them to the original place they were with the universe. So it's not maybe, I guess, looking at it from that perspective, then the infraction may have happened so you could be an instrument in bringing about forgiveness. It's not as personal, maybe, or maybe it is. I don't know. You see where I am now? You say I heard that differently this time.
When it talks about returning to the universe, returning to the original relationship, this is talking about returning you to beginning. We can open the door for others to go to beginning. Back to as Nicodemus was given the opportunity, you must return to the beginning. When he asked Jesus, how could he be born again? Mm-hmm. That's what this is talking about. It also is talking about seeing a person as the same spirit that you are. Seeing a Mitch McConnell, Donald Trump, or Huey Long as the same spirit that you are. You are them and they are you. And without regard to what has transpired between you and them or between them and a whole race of people, it doesn't matter. You see them as you are. And what I mean by that is that their actions are different than the actions that you are, that you would what? The action that you would, they do things differently than what you would do them. Let me put it that way, because I can't think of the word I'm looking for. They would do things differently than you. And even though you would not do the things that they do, you must see them as you see yourself. Spirit, period. The mind would tell you to do anything. And this forgiveness also grants opportunity for a renewed mind. The thoughts they have opportunity for the thoughts to be renewed. And all of this comes from a flow from the soul to the mind. Because when we think about who we are, let's look at it a bit differently. What we have been talking about is that the spirit that's within us, that has been taught to us, and that's something that we've held on to. However, if you really think about the reality of that, the spirit is not in us. Our body is in the spirit, because the spirit is all around us. And if the spirit is all around us, then the body exists within the confines of the spirit. And the thing that makes you is the energy flow that's different than the energy flow for someone else. And that is the reason that we hear differently. And that's one of the reasons also that we think differently. We are different only in the affinity that we have for different actions and for different thoughts. If we allow ourselves to be guided by our soul, then the affinity that we have for everything is to do the righteous thing, is to be ripened, is to travel a journey to benefit humanity. That's when we see that our body is in the spirit, and if our bodies is in the spirit, then so are the bodies of those who are the perpetuators of ill will toward humanity. If you need an example of that, let me share this. When I talk in previous discussions about the body being like a glass in the ocean, the water is still connected to the ocean, but the body is the thing that contains the water. Where if you see that glass as your body and the ocean is spiritual, that the spirit is not in you. You are in the spirit. You are in that ocean, because that glass is your body. It's in the midst of that ocean, and being as so, whatever we speak and the energy that we put out there flows through, is carried by the energy of the spirit itself. That is why when we speak, our voices, our words are determined by the way we breathe, and they're carried on the breath, and the inflection of those words determines how we receive them sometimes. So everything that we hear and speak is carried by the breath, which means that is carried by the spirit. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Any questions or comments about that?
Just as you all were talking.
Go ahead, Bob.
Just as you all were talking, the physical kind of thing that I thought about, just like you gave the physical example of the ocean and the drop in the ocean. When you were talking about forgiveness, the thing that I thought about was an open wound, an open gash, and not just a little one, but a gash, and that's an open wound either on the body or in the mind, in the psyche, if you will. That's divisive, that separates. And forgiveness is sort of like that magic that occurs when you touch that open wound, and it miraculously closes up and becomes as it was before. The difference is, though, when I have the power to forgive and I do not use that power, then I also have the open wounds and the gashes of mind and psyche and body from others that have not healed as well. Yet, when I use the power of forgiveness and I understand what it does, not only does it heal and close and brings back together and reconnects sinew and reconnects neurons in the brain and heals the psyche of the person I'm forgiving, it does the same for me, so that when I receive those kinds of wounds, at least when they're directed at me, I got this force field, if you will, of forgiveness, and it does not affect me. So that's just a concrete example of what I saw when you were discussing it. Thank you.
Thank you. I see that.
Good morning. Go ahead, George. But when we deal with the forgiveness thing, I want us to look at the rest of that too. Go ahead, George. Good morning, everyone, and forgive me for being tardy to the lecture. One of the things that I have come to grips with forgiveness, when quicksand forgives you or forgives an individual or individual, in essence, I become the author of that situation. And the word author comes from the word authority. The Creator has authority over what takes place. So when quicksand forgives you or forgives an individual, they always have access back to me. And I can only speak to where quicksand is now with an individual that I just keep giving. Quicksand gives him forgiveness. And no matter what the infractions he has done to me, he always has access to me. Now with George, when George forgives you, George becomes very petty. I'm going to go tit for tat with you. When Monique and I get in the car and she's driving, Monique will say, George, put on your seatbelt. And I'm in compliance. I will put on my seatbelt. Yet the minute she starts texting and driving, I take my seatbelt off. Why did you take your seatbelt? That's against the law. Well, you texting and driving. That's illegal too. I become real petty. So in forgiveness, when you forgive someone, you become the author of that situation because you have the authority. You're going to shape how it goes. Piggyback off what Reverend Richard has stated, the most difficult part of forgiveness is that other F word, forgetting about what was done. So quicksand is a little bit better than George with his spiritual walk. George is very petty, and I ain't the only one that's petty. I'm just the one that'll tell you. I'm the king of petty.
We know.
What's that again, Red?
We know.
We is plural. I think you know that, Reverend Rich. I don't know if everybody else know that. But nonetheless, I admit to.
I know.
So when you forgive, you become the author of that situation, meaning you have authority over it. And you're not vulnerable. In essence, you have exalted yourself where there's a sense of power because people have, hey, quick, why you let him do that? Man, if you was to ever do anything wrong to him, he'd really come after you. Let it ride because the world needs forgiveness. And the reason why the world needs forgiveness, because I've done some things where people have forgiven me. So quicksand is going to keep the forgiveness going. George is going to become very petty, go tit for tat with you. He got to prove his point. So just realize, if you agree with it, once you forgive an individual or individuals, in essence, you have more control of the nucleus than the infraction that was done to you. Thank you.
Thank you. One day I want to ask you, why is it that you speak of yourself in third person by calling it quicksand, but today is not that day? Because with those two personalities, you will never be balanced. They have to be one. So, but anyway, I thank you for your presentation. Anyone else?
That you can ask anything?
Say again?
You can ask anything?
Yes, sure.
Okay. I got two questions. One question was when what's the man name that told the Romans that he's the man? When Jesus was getting ready to go to the cross. And he took money to show them who Jesus was in the disciples. Judas, yes. Was Judas was born for doing what he was doing, and why did he, kill himself upside down, and did Jesus forgive him for what he did?
First of all, let's look at this conceptually. But we're talking about an allegory. And what Jesus has been said in this allegory about Judas is that when there are those amongst you who pretend to be walking with you, you know the difference in your soul. But you don't pass judgment on them and for what they're about to do. You let them do what they have to do, because you know that you know who you are, and you know that they cannot do any damage to you. They cannot hurt you, and because you are traveling a journey of righteousness. Judas did not hurt Jesus at all. Only thing Judas did, the idea of Judas rather, the only thing that did was to show us that there are those in our midst who will take a part in our crucifixion, and they will attempt to do it surreptitiously, and we are not to concern ourselves with that, because they will kill themselves. They will stop themselves. That's more of what that's talking about. And when we look at for they know not what they do, I think you'll see that more clearly, Charles. Okay.
Okay. Now the second question: what is the gatekeeper, and what do they do?
What do you mean?
I've been here, sir.
Say that again, please.
What is the gatekeeper, and what do they do?
You say gatekeeper?
I'm trying to understand it.
What's a gatekeeper?
Yes, sir.
Oh, it's a guardian. First of all, if you cannot be a gatekeeper to your soul, you can't be a gatekeeper for humanity. Meaning that the gatekeeper does not give life to anything that is adverse to the journey that we're on. The gatekeeper is the one who allows those thoughts, those petty thoughts, to flow through their mind as opposed to contemplating what's being said, the thought that's in their mind. They don't cultivate it. They let it flow through. That's been a gatekeeper. A gatekeeper does not hold on to anything that is going to create a disconnect between people around them. A gatekeeper does not allow those emotions to linger within them. So a gatekeeper is simply one who protects and guards not only his thoughts, but also the words that he speaks. And when you are able to do that, then you are also able to become a gatekeeper for humanity. I hope that helps.
Yes, it did.
Thank you. Any questions or comments about that? When Jesus said, forgive them, for they do not what they do, what does that mean? We talked about forgiveness, speaking about our original relationships, and what does it mean for they don't know what they're doing? When we talk about forgiveness, we understand by the words that Jesus spoke, or by the words attributed to this entity, Jesus, means that we don't judge what they are doing. What they are working towards, we don't judge them by that. For example, we don't judge someone who's working towards a white sense of superiority. We don't judge them based on that. We hear what they are saying, but we don't make judgment about them based upon that, because they don't know what they're doing. They do not understand the veracity of what they are creating. Think that what they are doing are things that to only serve themselves, and this is what creates problems within those around us. When we look at people who we spoke of earlier, with this divisive nature, we don't place a judgment on them because they don't know what they're creating. If their mind was renewed based upon their soul, they would not do this. They don't know what they're actually creating in this earth. They're only doing what they are doing for selfish reasons, and that in itself creates problems for the rest of humanity. So when we are able to bring people to what, for lack of a better term, their senses, or their sense of who they are, then these things that they are doing don't exist any longer, because they began to realize what they are creating. And we use those terms all the time. In Trump, they created a monster. Now they can't control him. So if they had known that they were creating the type of monster that they were creating, they would not have done that. They did not realize what they were bringing into existence. However, in a side note, this monster had to be created in order for everything to be exposed. But had they known that, they wouldn't do it. And right now, the movement is not so much to stop Trump. It is to put everything back in the undercover, meaning that they're trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube, and that's not going to happen. There will never be a status quo anymore as long as this country exists. And what happens, in essence, is it ceases to be a country and become a nation. So, any questions or comments about that?
Well, I got one thing about that. Now, when you say it ceased being a country and it become a nation, help me to understand that what you just said.
A country exists. A country exists to serve, and this is in my words. A country exists for the express purpose of serving a group of people who created that country. The idea of a nation is brought into existence that for the benefit of all who's in that nation. Like the Navajo Nation was brought into existence to make sure that everyone within the confines of that nation were taken care of. There was no poverty. That there was no division based upon wealth or any other things. But in a country, and again, this is my words, a country exists for the benefit of those who created it, and that's how this country was brought into existence. Does that make sense to you?
It makes sense to me.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ron?
Yes, sir. Anything, anyone? Questions or comments? Okay, where are we? Is this a place to take a pause? I think a lot has been said this morning. Maybe a good idea. We stop here and kind of give us an opportunity to meditate on what has been said, and as we do, we become one with it, and we release the energy. And we see if we have any questions tomorrow. Come back tomorrow. Everyone good with that?
Yeah.
I'm good with it.
Yep.
Well, let's hope everyone has a great day. And again, if you have any questions or comments, shoot me a text or shoot someone a text. And if you don't want to talk about it, and we're going to start there with your questions tomorrow, okay? Hope you enjoy the rest of your day and look forward to tomorrow morning. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Hello? Yes, we did.